Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.
Hi, you're listening to fantasyfootballtips.co, the podcast, and we are in association with premierpunts.com, the home of daily fantasy football betting. My name is Mills, and I'm joined via Skype today by Quigliano, and the man, he's returned from last week, well, from a couple of weeks ago. It's Cliff. Hello, gents.
How you doing, Mills?
Hello there, Mills. Is Cliff keeping his username handle as Calamity Cliff, or is it just going to be Cliff?
I think, go on, Cliff, you answer
It's
that.
just going to be Cliff.
I like that he's on chewing gum, though, because I can hear that loud and clear. That's fair play.
Well, as long as you can't hear my daughter crying in the background. We're recording from home locations this week, so we'll see how that goes. Gents, I've got to tell you, the first podcast of the season, which was the last one we did, it's had almost 5,000 listeners. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, Cliff, I know you were very nervous last week. Has that helped you at all? Or
That has helped the nerves. That has definitely helped the nerves. I know that...
Because you thought there was there was like 250,000. By how scared you were, I'd imagine you thought there was 250,000 people listening to that.
Yeah, I did think there would be more, but 5,000 views is brilliant for the first podcast that I was involved with.
Views? I think they were listening to it, mate, but whatever.
he still hasn't quite got to grips with how this works, has he?
You can tell he's tightened up off air. He was loving it, and now he's tightened up again.
And no JP this week, gents. He was due to be on, wasn't he?
Bottle job.
What a bottle job.
Don't mention his name on air. He doesn't deserve any airtime.
So no airtime for JP. Yeah, I mean, Cliff, I know you've sorted some plans out. You had things to do tonight, didn't you? But you shifted things around to make sure you could make the podcast. I like that commitment.
I did. I rearranged a few things today just so I was there ready to record the podcast for the boys.
Okay, it's great. I mean, I'm not even going to go there. Actually, we might go into that later. So, Quigliano, how's your pre-season going? Are you ready for the long slog ahead?
I mean, it's been tough. I spoke to Cliff. This is like letting you in on a bit of private information. Having won this now for a couple of years on the trot and won the World Cup and stuff like that, I'm finding motivation to be tough. And it's probably only been today that I've actually nestled myself in front of the computer and started playing around with different options. So I'm starting to get the buzz back. I'm starting to feel lukewarm towards the season ahead. And I'm sure by the time it kicks off, I'll be ripe and ready to go.
Do you know, I think you're not the only one feeling like that. There's a lot of panic amongst Twitter at the moment. That I think there's less than 1 million players in FPL at the moment. Obviously, we used to having over 3. Is that
3
million? Yeah. Is that something that's going to are they all going to come in at the last minute? Is it because there's 1 million hardcore players in there at the moment, and everyone else is going to come flooding in at the last minute? Do you think it hasn't lost its flair, has it? It hasn't lost its appeal.
Just because there's been one podcast, surely. Just because there's been one podcast, they're like, well, I'll wait till we've heard a bit more from Quigliano before we start entering the team. So, what better way to do it than tonight?
Fantastic, and we'll lots of tips coming up on the podcast today. Probably too many for some people's liking, but we'll get onto that shortly. So, Cliff, your pre-season. Obviously, we've not had the chance to hear from you in the past. How do you sort of get through pre-season?
Picking 15 different teams and seeing which players are in every team so far. I mean, me and Quigliano did have a chat, and I said I think I picked the same team 4 times on the trot. So that, to me, must mean that is the team that I'm sticking for the start of the season.
You have got a very short memory as well, haven't you? So you probably just forgot that you'd picked that team.
So slightly different approaches. Quigliano, I like the fact that you're getting your sort of mojo back with it. There's someone in our WhatsApp group, in our own little mini league, who is very cocky, and actually was up there for a lot of last season, but fell away at the end. And he tells me that he literally goes in the day before. Is that a good tactic, do you think, gents, or does it really make any difference?
Who are you talking about? You've completely lost me, mate.
I'm talking about the rough one.
Well, he goes in the day before. Well, that probably shows why he's not won anything, mate. Next, move on.
Okay, right. Let's get on to some tips then, gents, because that is why people are listening in. Should we go in with the good old favourite features first up? The Gary.
I've thrown you off course there, haven't I? A little bit.
You did. It's off script, Quigliano.
Ruffled your feathers, which is what I like. Right. Well, we'll talk. We're going to go in straight with the tips, so that everyone who's bored can switch off, and then anything like strategy we can delve into. So these are guaranteed performers. Gary of the week, Gary Busey, fan of the show. It's Aguero. Okay, I think anyone who's played this game before will know you don't win anything unless you've got Aguero. You're a brave, very brave man. In fact, you're not brave, you're stupid. If you're watching the games at the weekend going, I think I'll be all right without Aguero, because you know he's going to score. They've got Sunderland at home. Moyes is back in town. Roll in the circus. It's going to be a hat-trick for Aguero.
Thoughts on that, Cliff? And we're not questioning these really, because that's not the way we do these tips. But just initial thoughts, Cliff.
I do think Sunderland will be the best fixture for City at home to start the season with. So I will agree with Quigliano. Aguero would be the Gary of the week.
Yeah, and just thoughts on Sunderland, gents, in general. They've not signed anyone. There's been no incoming players. I know they've put Moyes in there, and I think that's a really good appointment. But are they going to struggle again this season?
I think they will.
Yeah.
I think they'll struggle, but I do agree. I think Moyes is a good appointment for the club.
Okay, so
just agreeing with everything. I like it.
Okay, Quigliano
bringing nothing to the table.
Let's get straight into the long shot then. So the Xabi Alonso, maybe a little bit of differential on this one, Quigliano.
No differential on this one, I'm afraid. I've put this one down as long shot because, but this links to a bit of strategy. Always bear in mind all these players that have come in this season. We don't know how they're going to adapt to Premier League life. So the long shot for me is Ibrahimovic. He's expensive. If you've listened to me, you've already got a Gary in Aguero, and that's cost you 13 million, I think. If you want Ibrahimovic, that's 11.5. That's a lot of your Wonga gone. So he's a long shot saying it's a good fixture, but is he going to adapt to Premier League life that well? There you go. It's a long shot. Called it.
Okay, like it. We'll move on because I think we might be talking a bit more on Ibra later on. The Delia, this is a tough one this week, isn't it? Because obviously in the off season, where do we go with the Delia? I'm intrigued.
It's a tough one, as you said. The Delia Smith, in reference to where are you? Let's be having you. It's Lukaku. I want to know where he's been. Absent for the most of last season. The double game week, he went missing. He had all the fixtures and he went missing for those. He went to the Euros and popped up for one game, then went missing. And now there's a lot of talk about him going back to Chelsea. I just want to know, where are you, Lukaku? Let's be having you.
Okay, and Cliff, you're a man of fine tastes and you like expensive things. Lukaku, 75 million, is he worth that?
Not in my day, no.
Who said 75 million?
That's what they're saying, that's what they're talking, 75 million for Lukaku going to Chelsea.
No way.
No chance.
Not going to happen?
I wouldn't even pay it.
I think it could happen, but I think he's not worth it.
Okay. So let's hypothetically say, because this is the last podcast we're probably going to do before the start of the season, someone's listening to this podcast and let's just, say that Lukaku has gone to Chelsea. Does he go in the team at 9 million at Chelsea? From an FPL point of view, would you put him
in? Yes and no. I'm undecided on that one because if anything, the competition increases. He's definitely a yes if he stays at Everton, maybe. If he goes to Chelsea, he slips down the pecking order, and they've got Costa, whether Costa stays or not. Batshuayi, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but
I'm not even going to try and attempt to better that, but it was wrong. But
either way, you've got. I fear his game time starts to dwindle. So for me, if anything, if he goes to Chelsea, he slips down my need rating until I know whether he's playing game in, game out.
For me, I disagree there with Quigliano.
Firmino.
with Quagliano.
We're talking about Lukaku, not Firmino, mate.
Because if he goes to Chelsea for 75 million, there is not a chance he will not start the Chelsea starting lineup.
A bit like Sterling going for 49 million, yeah, because he played every game.
I tell you what, Cliff, you're like a different person this week. What's questioning the mighty Quagliano? Is it because you're not in the same room? What's different this week?
I just disagree with the Lukaku situation. I think if he signs for 75 million, he will start majority of the games for Chelsea. I think if he goes to Chelsea, it's because Diego Costa will be leaving. So I think he will be starting most games if he does go to Chelsea.
Okay, right, gents, we're going to have a very short break. We're going to be back with the side tips and a brand new feature.
FantasyFootballTips.co. Number 1 for FPL.
Okay, Quagliano, side tips. We had to bring this feature back. It came in halfway through last season, and it just caught everyone's imagination, didn't it? It was probably the most favourite feature anyway. So where are we going with the side tips? And
so
please try and keep it for under 30 side tips this week.
So hashtag side tips in reference to hashtag side chicks. We've talked about, we had loads off air and we said that's too many, and a lot of the players mentioned were all the big hitters, and it was kind of common sense stuff. So we're going for more fixture by fixture, the standout player that you should probably have based on that. So Leicester Hull, we went Mahrez, and probably quite an easy option there. Burnley Swansea, Cliff, I'll let you have this one.
Burnley Swansea, we did go for Andre Gray, just because the amount of goals he scored in the Championship last season, with a home fixture to start, I think he's a side tip.
He's had a really good pre-season as well. He scored a hat-trick against Rangers, didn't he? And he scored in every game, I think, of pre-season. So he's looking like a top prospect.
Well, you overruled me on Siggy there, so we'll move on. Palace, West Brom. We sort of looked at defences there and thought Albion were going to get an away clean sheet, so we went with Johnny Evans. It's controversial.
Again, another player that's been linked to a crazy transfer. 15 million to Arsenal. It's never going to happen, is it? Anyway, let's move on.
Deulofeu, Everton Spurs. I think there's a lot on option there. There's others you could have considered. You could have backed to Spurs defence. You could have backed Eriksen in that midfield. You could have backed Kane up front. We could have backed Dele Alli. Forgotten man after quite a quiet tournament, but we went with Deulofeu. Moving on, Middlesbrough Stoke, Arnautovic. It's too early to see how Negredo's going to perform at this Middlesbrough team, so Arnautovic, we backed a winner. Southampton, Watford, a striker that I think is going to be in most teams. Now he's leading the line. It's old Schlongy, Shane Long, S. Long. Goals in him could be coming good. City, Sunderland, back the big hitter, KDB. Fancy him to come back. Under Pep, I think he's going to do even better than last season. Bournemouth United, Mkhitaryan, again, we don't know how he's going to perform, but pre-season everyone's raving, and I think he's a reasonable price at 9.5. Arsenal versus Liverpool, it's a tough fixture, but we're going Mane. Knows where the back of the net is. A Klopp-style player is everything that I hear. So we're going for Mane. And the forgotten man at Chelsea, going to come good again this year. This year's must-have player, Eden Hazard. Done. Side tips out.
Wow. Okay. Cliff, anything you want to add to that?
I do think on the Chelsea-West Ham fixture, I think it'll be tight. And I think Eden Hazard is a good shout, but I would also like to put Payet out there. I mean, he's in good form from the Euros, so I would like to put him in there. And one more side tip from myself.
Can we edit this out? It's running on a bit, isn't it, Nelson?
He sounds like he's forgotten it. I mean, come on, Cliff, get on with it.
Quagliano keeps interrupting me. Side tip for me is
Wijnaldum.
Okay, any reason for that, Cliff?
I just like his confidence. When he signed, he said he will be getting double figures for Liverpool this season.
Yeah, he did.
I'd like to see what he can do in the Liverpool shirt after he's had a poor season last year for Newcastle.
Yeah, Liverpool
Great
concern me
season for Baraka
massive.
Juniors, mate. Great season. 4 goals in one game.
He did, and yeah, that was a good shout last season. That was Quigliano. We'll just pay homage to that one more time. You know, my only concern with Liverpool, and I've said it and I've written it, and I'm going to say it again, is there's so many midfielders in there. How does Klopp fit them all in? I know he spent money on Wijnaldum. He spent a hell of a lot of money on Mane. They've got Coutinho. They've got Firmino. There's so much attacking Lallana. You know, there's so much in there.
Henderson, Milner, name them all, mate.
There's so many.
Lucas.
So I think it's tough to put all your kind of faith in one of those. But I appreciate your thoughts, Cliff. I really do. And that brings us on to a new feature. And I'm slightly worried and apprehensive about this one, but I think it could be a favourite. And it's very simply titled "Ask Cliff." And what I want to do is encourage the fans. You know, we talk a lot about FPL.
This sounds good. Have you organised Cliff Richard on for today's show?
You never know. He could come on next week.
It's surely not our Cliff, is it?
It is our Cliff. Ask Cliff. It is. You can ask him anything. You can ask him anything. And Eddie, it was the first person to come back with a question for him.
Eddie Redmayne?
Eddie Whitefield from Twitter. And he wants to know who the best golfer is on the pod. And
Me.
that's Cliff saying that, yeah?
Yeah, that's Cliff saying that.
So it's
Easy
just
answer.
straight in.
I like the way
in.
you've really utilised that your bit of airtime there, your feature, and it's who's the best guy? Me. Let's move on now. Let's forget
The
about
the best golfer is in the
now he's
podcast
gonna
team.
pad it
Is
out a
me.
bit.
Is me. Quigliano on his day can have a good game. Millsy is improving, and the forgotten man JP for today. Yeah, well, that's enough said about his golf.
Okay, let's move on. We did have an interesting tournament a week or two ago where us three did pretty well, didn't we, on the same team? And
We did.
JP let his team down, so we'll move on.
Does that so it was Eddie? Does he get his money back for that question? Because that's
it's a dreadful answer.
yeah. I mean,
He has
poor
got
Eddie.
a second
He probably
question.
He won't send in a tweet again.
Well, let's see if Cliff can redeem himself, because he did have a second question. Who is the must-have cheap defender in FPL?
The must-have cheap defender for me in FPL, we've already spoke about him today, is Johnny Evans for West Bromwich Albion.
The must-have defender.
Cheap defender. He said cheap defender.
He did.
4.5 million. I think West Brom keep a lot of clean sheets under Tony Pulis. Defensively solid. Johnny Evans for me, 4.5 million. Is a good cheap defender to have in your team.
Okay. I do like that shout. I think Johnny Evans will have a good season, and I think West Brom, you know, they're always pretty solid, particularly under Pulis, and I think they'll be even more solid this season than they were last. Gents, I think we'll go in with a couple more questions while we're on this feature, but this is opened up to everyone. So let's bring this one in. So Gerardo Moreno, he wants to know: should you focus on budget midfielders and stack up on quality defenders, assuming you have Aguerovic up front, which I'm guessing is the new thing for Aguero and Ibrahimovic, or should it be the other way around? So should you have the quality in defence and then budget midfield and be really heavy up top, or should there be a different approach? Thoughts on that?
Well, I'm interested to hear Cliff's thoughts on this, just so I can have a good old chuckle.
My thoughts on that when you got budget midfielders like Johnny Evans, like we just spoke about.
Midfielder?
Defenders, sorry.
Oh.
When you got Johnny Evans in defence, I think you can have top quality defenders as long as you've got the one or two maybe budget defenders to go with him, and then you still will have enough money in the midfield to buy your Mkhitaryan's, and you still will need someone like Jordan Ibe or Feghouli for West Ham, who's 5.5 million.
I don't know why that
What's
sounds
his
so
name
funny.
again?
Is that pronounced wrong? It's
It's just the way you say
It
it.
is. We want to hear it again.
Feghouli.
It's nothing worse when you're playing football and get hit in the Fagoolis as well. That always wrecks.
But
Anyway.
for 5.5 million.
Right, Quigliano, give us a proper answer.
I actually think there's no value in defence. There's no value there. I stacked the midfield. In fact, one of the things I did today was had a look at 3 expensive strikers, 2 expensive midfielders, a couple of budget midfielders, and then just a basic defence that is going to play week in, week out. I think the amount of clean sheets, you can't account for them. And I think you're better off trying to go for goal-scoring midfielders.
Okay, and
I just feel like there's a little ghost in my ear then. If someone asks a question just as the...
I don't know, I feel
something like, what was that? There was a ghost on the airwaves.
Ooh, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? Strange.
Cliff, any answers there?
No idea.
Right, okay, I'll listen to this back and listen to that.
Okay, let's move on. You're talking about attacking midfielders. I've got a question from Daniel Breslin. Again, this has come from Twitter. And he just simply wants to know, will Wijnaldum get into the first 11 at Liverpool? I know we've kind of already... who said that, sorry?
That was Quigliano with a yes.
Okay, straight in. Pretty much guaranteed. So at 8 million, he's pretty decent proposition, yeah?
I think he is, yeah.
Okay. Right, Cliff, you want to just comment on that, or are you happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I just mentioned him in a side tip. I'm happy with Wijnaldum. Will start for Liverpool this season. Okay, fantastic. Let's move on. We're going to do one more question, and then we're going to wrap up the standard podcast before we do go into extra, where we're going to be talking about the podcast, the captain tips for the first week, and we'll answer a couple more questions from Twitter. But the last one for now is going to come from Andy Goodland, our good old golf pro, who was actually very upset when... Yeah, hero, isn't he? He was very upset, actually, when he found out that we were doing a mini Ryder Cup tournament and didn't invite him. But maybe he can get in on the next one. He'll be in my team anyway. Am I crazy leaving out Zlatan? Aguero is in my team, so I don't really want to have to put in more budget players to afford both. So is he basically saying, should he have Aguero and Zlatan? Or can you justify not putting Zlatan in? I think I know Quigliano's take on this, so I'm going to go to Cliff first. I think he is crazy to not have Zlatan in the team.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I read an article the other day. It said Mourinho plus Zlatan equals title, and for me,
that was a great article. What was that?
It was
a 4-word article.
No, that was the title of the article.
Oh right, okay. So you didn't read the article.
Zlatan plus Mourinho.
It was in a maths paper that he was reading.
Zlatan plus Mourinho equals title, and I'm sticking with that. I think Man United will win the title, and I think Zlatan will be a big player for Man United.
So he has to be in.
Pythagoras.
Okay.
Watch out, Pythagoras.
Quigliano, do you have to have both?
I think you don't have to have both, but I think it makes for a nervous weekend without Ibrahimovic, considering how many players have already got him. I think he's got like 33%. He's in their team already. Ownership-wise, if he does well, your ranking's going to suffer. It's just price and balance of that team. Depends what you want. Don't forget, he's not the only player that's going to score goals on a weekend. So if you don't have him, as long as you've got somebody else who's going to contribute, it isn't the end of the world. It's about making sure that you kind of break even over that period.
Okay, I think that's sound advice, gents. I've enjoyed being back. This is, like I said, this is probably going to be the last one before the new season.
Holidays are upon us.
Holidays are upon us, and good times ahead, hopefully. But this is my question for you, Quigliano, and I will ask Cliff as well. You going into this kind of... Okay, I'm going on holiday.
Good question, mate. Spit it out.
I'm going on holiday, and I'm not going to probably spend as much time looking at my team as I normally would. What my question is how much tinkering are you going to do between now and the start of the season? How much should you be watching pre-season friendlies and keeping on top of all that? Or do you think now you've kind of got your head back in the game and you've sorted your team out, it's pretty much going to stay?
It just depends how much nerve you've got. You could pick your team now and just go, that's it, done, which I did last season. And then I was driving down the M5, coming back from Devon, getting the missus, telling her my code to log on to try and make some last minute changes as I was bottling it, thinking I needed Jordan Henderson in. So it depends how strong your will is. There's going to be there's going to be transfers made, aren't there, up until it kicks off. So that could change your decision process. If you've not got Wi-Fi, make sure there's somewhere nearby that you can get Wi-Fi. because you may need to make those changes. As long as the core of your team is okay, you can tinker as the season goes.
Okay.
Don't be one of those chumps that plays a wild card second week, though.
Okay, that might come up in the podcast extra. Cliff, any thoughts on that? I mean, will you do a lot of tinkering between now and then?
Nah, my team is pretty much set now, unless there is a big signing that has to go into the team. I think my team is set, and that'll be the team that kicks off the start of the season.
Okay, fantastic. Right, well, if you're not going to go into Podcast Extra, you are crazy. But if you're not going to go into Podcast Extra, I do wish you all the best in the preparations. And make sure you're going on to fantasyfootballtips.co and taking a look at the articles that are coming out there. There's lots of video content in there as well to help you navigate the new site, and you'll be shown some of our team selections. Look, if you're not in Podcast Extra, there is still a promotion going. You can get full membership for the whole season for £9.99. Just use the promotion code pre-season. If you've already done that, fantastic, and we'll see you on the other side in Podcast Extra. It's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Quigliano.
And goodbye from Cliff.
See you next time.
The Fantasy Football Tips Podcast with Mills, JP, Quigliano, and Cliff.